Good morning.
Good morning.
I've been thinking a lot about vision statements recently. The church council is working to come up with our vision for the coming years ahead. And I've been reading through a lot of vision statements to try and find out what a good vision statement looks like. And that is as exciting as it sounds. One I read recently carried with it a lot of flowery language, but the nitty-gritty of it was that their particular church would eventually have 10,000 members. That was it. That was the vision. And at some point, we'll have 10,000 members. After reading that, I thought, okay, good goal. Good luck with that. But then I kept wondering, okay, once you get that number, then what? You got your 10,000, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with 10,000 people? The bishop of the Sierra Pacific Synod once said something that really stuck in my mind. And it's what he thought the motto was for most churches. Here it is. Come to our church and help us not die. Who doesn't want to be a part of that? Turns out not a lot of people, which is why a lot of churches are closing their doors. Jesus sees Peter and Andrew fishing by the water and tells them, "Follow me and I will make you fish for people." And since it's Peter, and Peter is the rock of the church, we generally think that this is our mission as well. And it's not a bad mission. But the problem is that in most churches, most Christians have become catch and release fishermen. We get people in the door, shake them upside down to see what kind of money falls out their pockets, then we let them back out and hope that they find what they are looking for, whatever that might be. People walk through the door of most churches, and people will greet them and say, "We're so glad you're here." Now that's true. We are generally glad that people are there. But then a question comes. Why are you glad that I'm here? And that's when we stumble for an answer. We want you to make it so that the pews don't look so empty on Sunday. Welcome. We're glad you're here. We are fishers of people, but why? To help us not die? To get us to an arbitrary number? To kill time? No. We are fishers of people because we are stronger together. Now, I've interviewed at a number of churches in my lifetime, and regardless of the situation, regardless of what the congregation is going through, they generally always ask the same question in the interview. Pastor, how will you grow the church? And I answer honestly, which is probably why I've interviewed at more churches than I've gotten jobs at. My answer is that I really don't care about church growth. I mean, I do, but I really don't. I worry about the people we already have. Are they being fed? Are they being grown? For those who call this church home, are they being made into disciples? I worry about the community that surrounds us. I want to be part of a church that if it closed its doors, the community would miss us. I worry about people that are trapped in darkness in our community. Not whether or not they'll join our church, but whether or not they'll find a way out of that darkness. Whether or not they'll find a way to realize that there is hope, there is freedom, there is a God that loves them so very much. Sure, I worry about church growth, but not in the way that most people mean. Our gospel reading for today tells us about 5 people: Jesus, Peter, Andrew, James, and John. They were a church of 5 that went throughout Galilee, teaching in the synagogue and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and curing every disease and every sickness among the people. Does anyone doubt the ability of these 5 men to be the church, even though they don't have 10,000 people on their books? Does anyone think there is a more relevant church today than the church led by these 5 people? When did it all become about numbers? Was it when we started to fill out reports? Was it when we became landlords and started owning all these buildings that needed to be upkept and fixed? 5 people or 10,000 people, the mission is exactly the same. Spread light in the darkness. Set my people free. Churches get lost counting empty pews, crumbling walls, and programs as they used to be. And yet the calling of being a fisher of people has not changed. In fact, it's grown stronger, more necessary, more vital. So what does being a real fisher of people look like today? What is a more useful way to look at being a fisher of people than seeing how many fish we can cram in our boats? I have 3 parts. Could there be 4? Probably, but this list is 3. The first part of this fishing starts out fairly simple. The bar of being a Christian witness to other people, has dropped significantly since the time of Jesus. There was a time when we worried we had to be perfect, that we had to show everyone that we were perfect, that we were sinless, we never made mistakes. Because if they learned how screwed up we actually are, they might start to doubt this Christianity. That was the old bar. That bar's gone. Forget about that bar. People aren't even looking at that bar anymore. The new first level of Christian witness, of being a fisher of people, is this. Here it is. Don't be a jerk. It's the first part of Christian fishing. A number of people, you would not believe how many people come up to me and say, I had no idea you were a Christian. And I say, why? And they say, well, you weren't a jerk, so I had no idea. People have met Christians. They have been beat over the head by Christians of judgmentalism of I'm right and you're wrong. And they don't like what they've seen. The first part of Christian fishing, don't be a jerk. Religion in general has taken a hit as being far too dangerous for its own good. And history doesn't do anything to disprove this. Wars for religion, persecutions for religion. And when it comes to Christianity specifically, it doesn't necessarily get any better. But take it one step further. Think about Christians that are appearing in the newspapers, that are speaking for Christians. The message they often provide is one that at times makes me feel embarrassed to be labeled as a Christian. But why do they get to speak for us? They don't. That's why we need to be fishing. The first part of Christian fishing is not being a jerk, if for no other reason. It will allow people to look at this truth, this love, this freedom that has claimed us, and see it again with fresh eyes. People think they know who we are. They think they know what we stand for. They think they know about the God that we preach. We need to show them different. We need to teach them different, so that the God that is can meet them again. We need to show them that this real God that has found and claimed us is a God that faced the darkness and came back and can do the same for them. This first part of Christian fishing is simple. Take the poison out of the water so the fish can swim again. Second part of Christian fishing is to reestablish what the bait might be. We have regularly thought it is our words. That if we just craft the perfect message, the perfect argument, we can convince someone to believe in Christianity. Books and books are filled with Christian apologetics, Christian arguments for why we're right, and you need to believe it. But there's a problem with this. Arguments rarely, if ever, work. You cannot convince someone of something if they're not willing to be convinced. Because arguments always have holes. And I'll give you a specific example right here. Who can give me the definition of parallel lines? What are parallel lines?
Equidistant apart.
2 lines that are separated that never meet. That's the argument for parallel lines. That's the definition of parallel lines. Which is true. But In theoretical mathematics, if you take two parallel lines and give them infinite space, they will eventually meet. The one thing we know about parallel lines, the one definition we have, two lines that never meet, is wrong on some level. My brother-in-law, who was a math teacher for kids, came up to me after I told him this and he said, "What am I supposed to tell kids now about parallel lines?" Every argument has holes, even straight lines. You cannot convince someone of anything if they don't want to be convinced of it. You can put the hook near the fish, but you can't make them bite. The real bait of Christian fishing is action. Is going out and doing good, helping others, healing the sick, clothing the naked, visiting them in prison. Why is it actions and not words? Because you know what happens when your bait of doing good goes nowhere and no one pays attention. You still change the world. The naked are still clothed. The hungry are still fed. The sick are healed. The lonely are reminded that they're not so alone. The third part of Christian fishing has to do with what you do once you have the fish. Once you have your 5 or your 10,000. There is a comedian that talks about snatching a frog up out of its natural environment where it had all the bugs it could eat, all these other friends. He puts it in a jar, puts a top on it, pokes some holes in the top so it can breathe. But he says it's okay. The things aren't so bad for the frog because I put a stick in the thing to make it replicate its natural environment. He now feels at home in this jar. We take these new people with their various backgrounds and histories and put them into our existing church, where of course they are welcome. But they have to be like this. They have to act like this, swim like this, jump like this. They have to become one of us. One of us. One of us. People have such incredible gifts, but when they make them become one of us, that boils us down to how many? One. One is not that exciting. In fact, it's the loneliest number you can ever do. We make everybody one of us. We miss out on what a unified group of different, beautiful, strange people can really be. Of the change that we can face. The change that we can see. We are called to be fishers of people, not because we want to not die, or because we want to get 10,000 on our books, but because God has called us to change the world and we cannot do it on our own. We need the people we need. And we have to make the most of all the beautiful and different people that walk through our doors. Even the ones that don't. So that means don't be a jerk. Speak less. And allow this to be our church, rather than your church. Amen.